Hello and welcome to part 10 in our Mantis Q40 series. Today we're going to focus on the file manager. The file manager basics are going to be what's covered today, and that's just going to include locating and opening files from within the file manager. So let's go ahead and get started. My Mantis is on, and I'm just going to press my home menu button a couple of times to make sure that that's where I'm at. And my screen does say editor. So as usual, I can press F to navigate directly to the file manager. First letter navigation is amazing. And when I see file manager in focus, I can press enter. This opens the file manager, and depending on where you kind of left off is going to kind of depend on where you're put. So right now I see that I'm focused on a folder called books. The reason I know that I'm in a folder is because there is a full cell here right next to the B for books. And that full cell indicates that you are focused on a folder, not a file. So that means that if I hit enter, I would open that particular folder and see the files within it. So I'm just gonna, if there are any, I'm just gonna press enter because I can't remember what's in there. And it says, it says empty. So that's cool. At least that tells me that it's an empty file. So I can go back, by just pressing escape. Sometimes I forget and I use key commands that I would normally use on Windows and kind of forget. But the good news is it gives you an auditory signal that lets you know, oops, that didn't work. So anyway, so that is how you would tell if you're on a folder and if you would open a folder. If I use my previous and next thumb keys or my up and down arrows, either one, will take you to the next folder, which is documents. The next folder again, which is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's one of the books we had downloaded. And here's another file with a folder with the same name. One is for the BRF file and one is for the DAISY files. And then there is one more folder for online books. Oh, and I lied. There is a final one, a folder for release notes. So that anytime you update your device, there will be release notes to talk about the things that are in the new version. So I'm going to press my next thumb key again. And here is that practice file that we did a while back and that was called amy.txt. Remember, please, that every time you make an edit to a file, no matter what kind of file it started out as, it will be saved as a txt. This just as a reminder. I'm going to go down one more and I see the word back. So I can, if I cycled back again and hit my next thumb key one more time, I'm right back to that online books. So suppose I wanted to go back. So I'm going to actually do my previous thumb key to cycle to the bottom of this list. And now the word back is in focus. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter to activate the back key. And here is what I see. It says storage. So what is storage exactly? So storage means the internal memory of the device itself. So the Mantis does have internal memory that you can store items on. If I had an SD card in this back port, which I don't at the moment, but I'm going to put one in to show you how it looks when you put an SD card in the unit. When that's there, SD will be an option. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in right now. So excuse my hand in the middle of the camera here. So if you'll recall, that SD card slot is in the back left area of the unit. Okay, so then I get a flash message that tells me that there's an SD card inserted. Now, when I'm focused here, I see storage, and then I use a down arrow and I see SD. Use a down arrow and I see cancel. If I had a thumb drive in here, or I'm actually, it says close application, so not cancel. But if I had a thumb drive in here, that would also show up. So I can pick whether I'm looking at my SD card or my internal memory. I'm going to go ahead and go to my SD card by using my up and down arrows or my thumb keys, and I'm going to press enter or a cursor routing key. A lot of times, especially on new SD cards, they have a folder on it that that's used. Sometimes it's called SD properties or things like that. This folder generally does absolutely nothing. And a lot of times if you format the SD card, that folder might not be there. But it's a good thing to be aware of. I'm going to press my next thumb key, and here is a file that I created on this SD card as well. If I wanted to go back to storage, I could do that, but I don't have to do all the fancy maneuvering I had done before. If I just do a control plus the letter D, as in drive, so to select the drive, I will be given the options. So I see storage here, and if I press a next thumb key, I see SD, and then cancel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to storage and press enter. As you can see, or maybe not, depending on how well you can see this braille display, I'm focused right on that books folder as I was before. Accessing the file and folder information is something that you might need, especially if you don't know what the file type is or any of those things. To get that information, and I'm just going to go down here to that file that has that Amy.txt file. And I want to get that information. So I'm going to do a control plus the letter I for information. Now I'm go ahead and I'm placed in sort of a dialog where I can navigate using my previous and next thumb keys. So the first thing it's going to tell me is the name of the file. If I hit a next thumb key, it's going to give me the path that file is in. So in case I forgot what folder I'm in, what drive I'm in, it will tell you what the path is and where the file is physically located. If I press next again, it's going to tell me the type. It's going to tell me whether it's a folder, it'll say whether it's a TXT file, etc. This one happens to say TXT file. Next, size, and the size is 79. 79 bytes. That didn't look right for like a half a second. So 79 bytes. I'm going to go ahead and press the next thumb key again, and it's going to tell me when it was last modified. If I press the next thumb key again, it's going to give me some attributes. And for example, one of them might be like, is it a read-only file? You know, so anything specific about it that you might need to know. One more time with that next thumb key, and I go to the back option. If I cycle forward again, I'm going to go right back to name. So I can get out of this a couple of ways. I can move to where it says back and hit enter, or my personal favorite is pressing escape. So now it says my Amy text folder is now in focus again. The Where Am I function allows you to display the path of your current location on the Braille display. It's similar to finding that path when you open the information pane about a particular file or folder. The only difference is that this will occur as a flash message. So the path will appear for a very brief time, or depending on how long, well, maybe longer, depending on how long your flash messages show up for, and then it will disappear. To display that Where Am I is a control plus the letter W for Where Am I, similar to locating your spot within a book or a file that we have talked about in the past. Another useful feature is the Find feature. The Find feature lets you perform a search in the file manager to look for a specific file or folder with a given name. To begin a file search or a find, you can just do a control plus the letter F from within the file manager. And you're going to get a display that says search, and you're going to have that fun little bracketed thing that we have been talking about periodically when we have text to enter. So I'm just going to search, I'm going to search for that Amy file just to kind of keep it interesting. Press enter, and it brought up the file that I was looking for. Pretty easy. You just navigate the results using the previous and next thumb keys, and if you want to open the file, just press enter and it will load it. I'm going to go ahead and get out of this file because I want to get back into the file manager. Oops, here we go. I got out and I need to get back in. All right, so another really neat option is to sort your files or folders by a particular characteristic. To do that, there's a specific key command, but I need to tell you that by default, unless you've made any changes, your files and folders are going to appear alphabetically, with folders occurring first, and again, as noted with that full cell right before the folder name, and then followed by the files alphabetically. So you can sort them, files and folders, a couple of different ways. But let's go ahead and do a Control-Shift-V to do a view or sort. I'd like to think of it as view just because it's a little easier. So it opens a sort of a dialog, and the first thing we have is name. I'm going to go forward in the results, or in the dialog, by pressing the next thumb key. The next one is size, followed by date, followed by a file type, and then the word close would allow you to leave without making any changes at all. And if I press that next thumb key again, I'm going to land right back on name. Suppose I want to change my sorting to, I want to change it to sort by size. So I'm going to have that size in focus and press enter or a cursor routing key, and it will sort those files in that way. So now I'm going down here, and yep, it's sorting them by size. So that pretty much concludes this installment of the Mantis Q40 series. Please feel free to comment or like or subscribe. Let us know whether we're meeting your needs or if there's anything else that you specifically would like to know about how the Mantis works. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great day.